Folks, for over a year now, we've been extolling the virtues of buying precious metals. As you can see, Fort Knox is about to be audited, and that's imminent, and you're going to see that gold reserves are little to none. What do you think that'll do to the price of gold? And with silver being ransacked with COMEX on the markets, that's sure to follow as well. The only question is, are you going to take action or not? If you haven't, what are you waiting for? And if you have, please take a moment to visit one of our great sponsors here below, the link in the description, and call for the information. It's free. The consultation is free. The cost of not taking advantage of this has lasting consequences, folks. Please tell them John and Chris sent you. You'll be more than happy that you did. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. We have a returning guest that's been on hiatus for a little while. We're honored to have him back, the one and only Mr. Lloyd Brunson, and his effusive self is going to be joining us for some very important updates insofar as his case and some financial discussion goes, as he is quite cogent in constitutional matters, as you're aware. So if you're new to the podcast, please do like, subscribe, and share, as it helps the channel grow and others to gain in the knowledge you've been afforded. Lloyd, welcome back. How are you doing today, good sir?
Doing great, thank you. How are you doing? It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. It's a great way to end this long month of events and podcasts with having you here for this perfect and very apropos time. So Lloyd, I want to show you a couple of things and then get your reaction. The first of which is, of course, the Brunson case. Now, a lot of people thought that the elections came and went and that the case was a moot point, but as it turns out, it's not. It's very much of a dormancy that is starting to kick up again. And I have a video that you're well aware of that supports this. So if you would indulge me on the screen for a moment, I'm going to play this video of this handsome buck here, and and we're going to play this, and then I want to get your reaction to where the case stands from when this was out earlier this month. So just bear with me a moment.
People are still asking me about the Brunson case, and I'm glad. A lot of people still feel that there's something still going on with it, that it's not dead, that it's not over with. Well, we're going to have a new U.S. Solicitor General who will have jurisdiction over the 387 defendants, and his name is Dean Jon Sauer, and he has successfully argued for President Trump in front of the Supreme Court justices. When he becomes the new U.S. Solicitor General, he has the power and the influence to get a conference. I never was granted a second conference. It was decided without a second conference, and you're entitled to 2 conferences, and you can even get more. So it is possible that Dean Jon Sauer, working with President Trump, could see a viable and important reason to bring this case back into a conference and then a hearing to hold our representatives accountable. 387 defendants that'll be represented by the new U.S. Solicitor General need to be held accountable. We need to find out why they didn't support the 10-day investigation, and this needs to go into discovery, which would be an incredible way to help President Trump with the 2020 election that he has said needs to be investigated and is probably already being investigated. So God bless America, and may the Lord bless you and all you're doing, and look forward to talking to you next time.
So Lloyd, that was obviously early this month on the 4th. So what updates from that point can you give us?
Well, we know that he's been confirmed, and so he is the new U.S. Solicitor General. Another interesting fact is that Ted Cruz has already been decided by President Trump to replace one of the Supreme Court justices should they need to be replaced or should one step down. And so this has been a path of so many miracles. We've had so many dead ends and so many times when it just seemed like we couldn't move forward. You know, from the beginning, we're not even the federal court. If we'd gone to lawyers, they would have said, we cannot file this case for you. You have to get permission from the government to sue the government. And that's what they would have told us to do. But we showed the district court, the federal court of Utah, that we have the constitutional power, state and local, to bring any action against any entity in any court. And so for them to unfile it, and then after we took them to task with the Constitution information, and then for them to decide on their own to refile my case, and other breakthroughs have been unbelievable. We feel like divine miracles. And so at this point, with Dean Jon Sauer, the fact that President Trump won, and not just the electoral votes, but the majority of the votes, and that Dean Jon Sauer is now the U.S. Solicitor General that would be the representative of the 387 defendants, and me as the plaintiff and the petitioner, I have the power to meet with him and remove any, if we wanted to, of those defendants, or negotiate with them so that they could help with discovery and find out what really happened with the members of Congress. If anything bad any kind of conspiracies or any kind of bad behavior happening with members of Congress, that should be exposed. And so this could move forward in that incredible kind of a way. And then all the information we see from the discovery process with the lawsuit could be referred, if necessary, and to the Attorney General, or to the Attorney General's office for criminal investigation. So it's not over, and the 2020 election is not over yet, and it needs to be investigated. And it's right now, I believe, there's a lot of investigation going on and evidence being accumulated and put together. And at the right time in the right place, we're going to see some pretty amazing things happen.
I agree, and I think it's just getting started. I would actually, say the inverse. And God's timing, as you agree and know, is obviously perfect. And then you look at all the malfeasance. I think it's mostly optics for the public to see. What's the scuttlebutt and the rumblings going on within the Supreme Court.
It's kind of a foundation so that when action is brought, even if it's just civil, that could turn into criminal, it just makes so much more sense. So the timing is just absolutely incredible. And right now, it would be nice to see a new Supreme Court justice. The Solicitor General is considered, he's so powerful, he's considered to be the 10th justice of the Supreme Court. He has a lot of power. So at the right time and place, he can take action that could bring a lot of good to the whole situation. So it would be great to see someone step down and a new Supreme Court justice be put in there. That's the next miracle I'm looking for.
Yeah, I agree. Well, one at a time, right? And
exactly.
And as President Trump and the whole administration and the patriots within the confines of the group have said many times, fraud vitiates everything. So that's very much seems like it's on the sidelines for the perfect time. Yeah, and exactly.
Vitiates everything too, right?
Yeah, that too. Yeah, a little detail. And I know this is redundant, but I say this for new audience members. It stands to reason for having this podcast. You didn't sign an NDA, correct?
That is right. I did not sign an NDA. I have not been asked to sign an NDA. No. Yeah. There are a lot of rumors going around out there. I try to put those little fires out as much as I can.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why we're here, to just get the facts and the truth in a very straightforward manner, and patriots like you help to remediate that. Sure. So obviously you don't have a crystal ball, and I don't expect you to, but you're closer to this case than anyone else since you're the arbiter of it. Now that these miracles have occurred, or these divine movements by the Lord, thankfully, would it be reasonable to say that you might think that we're going to see some more activity sooner rather than later this year?
Like you said, I don't have a crystal ball, but I think it's happening as it should happen. And if we see a Supreme Court justice replace, it's like, oh my gosh, that is such a huge thing. But there are other things that the Solicitor General can do, and he's only been in there a few weeks, like 2 or 3 weeks anyway. And so as is needed with their investigation, and this could be a big part of it, the Brunson case could be a big part of it, I think things will happen. But I don't think I'll ever be asked to sign an NDA. Of course, they could seal the case, and they could be doing some things with it right now without even my knowledge of it. They don't have to talk to me about what they're doing. Sure. But it's there, and the Solicitor General has a tremendous amount of power. And so people were saying, what would Loy look like if he were arguing in front of the justices? And with the U.S. Solicitor being Dean John Sauer, I just say, hey, whatever you want, I'm with you. It's like, it just relieves such a pressure on me representing myself, or them thinking about having an attorney represent me in that kind of a situation. So we'll see what happens. And the letter campaign, people are still writing letters, and there's 2 letters at LloydBrunson.com to the federal, one to Congress about the Federal Reserve. That has got to be exposed too. And I think Elon Musk, he mentioned a little bit, and he said he can't talk much about that, but he did say that there's 4.7 trillion that had been distributed to some unidentified entities. And I think he's getting into the Federal Reserve System, where they're nonprofit. Every trillion of dollars that they've created, and all the wealth that they've accumulated with the money that they've created out of thin air, all that wealth belongs to the U.S. taxpayer. And so I think we're going to see some amazing, amazing things that are going to blow our minds.
Well, there's no doubt about that. That's for sure. And so you sort of indirectly nicely segue to my other question or discussion, which we talked about offline, we would be discussing, is the monetary supply system. So I'm going to, before we get into the questions, I want to show you a couple of quick screenshots.
Sure.
One of our team members who works for a pretty high up financial institution sent this to us as a courtesy. This is the silver chart. So as you can see, this is what a normal pattern is supposed to look like, as you're probably aware, right? And as we see silver's up again, it of course, like anything, any commodities, it's going to fluctuate, but it's fluctuating in the right direction. To your point, Elon Musk finding all this fraud and malfeasance. You have Jim Rickards, a very well-known chief economist, coming out saying that President Trump has a 165 plus $1 trillion, we'll call it a surplus. It's really just people's money, as you rightly said, coming back through Doge, through the US debt clock, repatriating to the people. And it's like almost inverse inflation being returned, because you're moving the IRS to the ERS. It's really just a payment versus a collection system, right? So,
yeah, exactly.
So you have the silver side of it. And then here's the abnormality, which is the gold chart. And you can see these abnormal wave patterns that really are, frankly, from what he's telling me, my team member, unprecedented. We saw gold, I think, a couple of days ago upwards of 3,500. The next marker they're talking about is 4,000. We know, you and I and others know, that this thing can move rather quickly because it's been suppressed like a slingshot for so long. So talk a little bit about what your thoughts are about moving back to a constitutionally based gold standard pre-Nixon. Seems like President Trump is moving in that direction with the removal of taxes and auditing Fort Knox, auditing the Fed. It seems to be leading that way. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of misconceptions, misinformation out there. A lot of people believe that we were on the gold standard, but it wasn't. It was the Federal Reserve was on the gold standard, and then they went off it. It's like, oh my gosh, we gave them so much more power than they already had. They already had way too much power. And but it would be very easy to have a fraction of an ounce of gold backing a dollar. It'd be so easy if that were needed with the U.S. currency. And I think President Trump really knows what he's doing on that score. I've had a private conversation with Stephen Moore. He was chief economics advisor for President Trump for 4 years. And we talked about just the basics with the Federal Reserve System, that if we enforced their nonprofit status, it would eliminate the need for the IRS completely. And not only would it be a return of money to the taxpayer, but it would be return of assets that could include gold and silver mines and other global corporations that have accumulated huge amounts of real wealth, not just money, but real wealth that really belongs and needs to be acquisition back to the taxpayer. And so into the future, we could see, like you were talking about, a reverse of taxation into where previous taxpayers would actually be receiving some kind of a monthly benefit, some kind of money back, or a real owning a real piece of real property, real value, and not just money. And so wouldn't that be great to see a reversal of what's happened? And that's what needs to happen. Is we've been paying taxes that we shouldn't have had to pay, and that money's been stolen from us, and we should be compensated with interest and penalties. And so that'd be pretty cool to get a dividend every month in addition to other money because of the corruption that's been uncovered.
I agree. And I think that's exactly where we're headed. And I think the way he's categorizing it in terms of, for the people to understand, is the sovereign wealth fund, because that's something I think most people can get behind and understand. I mean, you have Alaska, where they're getting I think an annual stipend. It used to be, I believe it was $1,500. Hopefully it's a little bit more now. They're getting a stipend for the oil rights. There's going to be other countries that are getting that going forward, like Iraq, who haven't gotten it for quite some time and should have, notably the Kurdistan region, for example. So it's just natural, I think, and right that we get these monies back that, as you said, we should have never paid taxes in the first place. And then you could also unwind the 14th and 16th Amendment, which, are unconstitutional right there. They just stuck that on us out of our own misguidance of not knowing.
Yep, and then the 17th Amendment as well needs to be fixed.
Yeah, that too. So what gives you the most excitement, Lloyd, as you're looking at the landscape of things, both with respect to kind of tying things together with your case and with the financial landscape? What are you most excited and anticipatory about here in the near future?
Well, actually, Thomas Jefferson was a brilliant man. And I remember watching a little video where President John F. Kennedy was speaking to the Western Hemisphere. All the Nobel laureates of the Western Hemisphere were at the White House having dinner. And he said to them, "This is the greatest collection of intelligence and knowledge ever assembled at the White House. with a possible exception of when Thomas Jefferson dined here alone. And they all laughed, but it's like Thomas Jefferson was so brilliant and so ahead of his time. And he said, Thomas Jefferson said, the only true corrective for constitutional abuse is education. And that brings me to what I'm super excited about today. As a matter of fact, I'll be going to the press today. I have a new coffee table version of the Constitution of the United States with my discoveries that gets into the Federal Reserve System, the interpretation clause that demands the Constitution only be interpreted in ways that protect our rights. And so it's education, and that's what I'm most excited about. And so they're just finishing up, the printer's just finishing up another 50,000 copies of my pocket size, and this will also be the presidential edition 2025 that people can get at 7discoveries.com. So my mission right now, along with the lawsuit and the Federal Reserve, where people can still write letters at lloydbrunson.com, but to get these books out, and as many as we can, so that people can refer to these power clauses and understand the power in them and how they can use them. And I started asking questions with members of Congress. I asked a U.S. Senator, I said to him, Article 6 of the Constitution is very clear with the words, you shall be bound by oath to this Constitution. I said, how are you bound? What's the penalty for breaking the oath that you swear to uphold and defend against all enemies, foreign and domestic? And just that simple knowledge that I had, that it was there, that it was a requirement in the Constitution, that simple question, and I just listened, and just that simple question caused him to think and think out loud. He started realizing for the first time in his life that he's not taken a binding oath as required by the Constitution because there's no penalty attached. And so just that opportunity is one of the many that people can have when the next time they visit at a town hall meeting, or they visit someone they're going to vote for or thinking about voting for, or a representative, a current representative, where they have this power now, where these highlighted clauses are right there, where they can take them. They don't have to go searching for years like I had to do to find these incredible, powerful clauses. For example, the first 10 amendments, it's like we've been in a way brainwashed into thinking that the first 10 amendments are simply the Bill of Rights. And it's like the first Congress did not define the first 10 amendments as the Bill of Rights. They defined them as something much more powerful than that. And that concept is that information has been hidden from us. They defined the first 10 amendments as further declaratory and restrictive clauses to the Constitution of the United States. And these concepts are in this book, where you can look at them quickly with questions and answers as well in the back of the book. And so people need to get this information, and it's a quick way to do it, so they can arm themselves with these clauses and connect to these clauses with their representatives. And then it puts them in a position to produce the right representatives that will correct this horrible course that we're on of a non-binding oath and no knowledge about the Constitution, so that as things get cleared up and we get our wealth back, we can stay on course and preserve it, because we know there are forces out there, constant forces trying to destroy us. And how do they destroy us? With propaganda, like the Solovetsky rules for radicals, this propaganda machine of lies. They can only succeed if we don't have knowledge. And so back to Thomas Jefferson's message, and that is education. This is a great way to do it. So these are available, plus the pocket-sized book. And one of my favorite clauses that I found is that there's an interpretation clause in the Constitution, one of those further declaratory and restrictive clauses in the Ninth Amendment, with one sentence that is backed up by the Declaration of Independence. That one sentence, the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. And our rights are from God as a self-evident truth in the Declaration of Independence. And as we understand that, then we can also use that to hold our representatives' feet to the fire, where if they start misinterpreting the Constitution, intentionally or otherwise, we can say, hey, wait just a second. Hey, Bernie Sanders, you took an oath to uphold the Constitution. Look at the last line of the Fifth Amendment, and then remind him that that's a further declaratory and restrictive clause. Nor shall your private property, which includes your money, be taken for public use without just compensation. That is a very direct constitutional clause that prohibits socialism. And Bernie Sanders, you've taken an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States,
and being a known socialist and not changing your course and declaring that socialism is bad and unconstitutional, you are violating your oath. And representatives in the Congress need to hold him accountable. And as we, the people, wake up to these clauses, we can get our representatives to do the same. And then they have the job to show each other and to show others like Bernie Sanders that they can't be a socialist and keep their oath.
Absolutely. Beautifully said, by the way, as usual. No surprise. So 2 more questions, Lloyd, just to respect your time as always. The books that you've created, the larger and then the smaller version, sort of the pickup book, I'll call it. So did you put it in your pocket, what have you? Have you presented that idea to any private schools or any schools that are faith-based that you think would be receptive?
We're going to do that. This is being printed right now. It's being bound right now. 50,000 copies of these are being bound. We did 10,000 of these coffee table size books, and we're reaching out to quite a few different opportunities to get this distributed, because these are the only books that have what I just mentioned, that have those discoveries. And so we're excited about the opportunities that are being presented to us to get them to the White House, to get them to Congress, to get them to other organizations. And we're working so that we can make bulk orders so inexpensive that organizations, private schools, and whatnot can do that. Now, the public school system cannot take these books. Maybe they can, but they say they can't because there's commentary. We explain what's going on in the Constitution, and so what some of the schools have said is we can't put them in our libraries or make them available to our students because it's political. So when you start explaining the Constitution and these concepts, especially about taxation and money, then they claim it's political. So we need to get that changed. We need to work with the current administration and get that changed. So this 2025 presidential edition, I'm able to present to some different organizations right now, and that is going to include the Trump administration. They're going to get copies of these, and hopefully we'll get them to all the members of Congress, and from there we'll get it out as much as we possibly can.
No, it's a great idea because it's a massive empowerment of proper knowledge. And you have states like, I believe it's Oklahoma, Mississippi, and Louisiana now, if I'm not mistaken, that are mandating in public schools prayer and Bible. And so that would just lead itself to constitutional learning. So that opens up a portal for you. So the last question, Lloyd, for today is, we can't talk about the Constitution and justice and fairness on just solely the financial side unless we deal with it on the geopolitical side. You talked rightly about taking an oath and what that really means. It's more important than people could ever possibly realize, particularly people who are in the corporation side, not representing our best interest, one of which you mentioned. So how do you see things? I know Steve Bannon was on a podcast the other day with, I think it was Glenn Beck, talking about we're burning daylight for arrests. Do you see arrests incoming as this wave of justice continues to move forward?
I think we're going to see a tremendous number of indictments. Absolutely. But the foundations have to be laid. The paperwork has to be completed. And there's so much work to be done. So I think there are two things going on, two main things going on with the Department of Justice. And one is the immediate things that are having to do with the immigration problems and the illegal people here. And the other is they're laying the foundation with the paperwork and the legalese to put that in motion so that they can do that in a very expeditious and judicial way. And so I think there's we've only had this new administration a few days, basically, about 2 months is all. So I think we're going to see some amazing, the news is going to be, they're going to have a hard time keeping up with all of the indictments. Absolutely. And I think we're going to see something with the Federal Communication Commission directors, their executive appointments, and they have taken an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States. And I think we're going to see all of the news people on camera taken an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States. I mean, they have a very strong protection in the First Amendment. The press, protection of the press is very important. And the fact that they're in there, they need to take an oath like the executive appointment. The 5 directors have to take an oath, and they need to do that. And if they take an oath to the Constitution, they better well have read it, because if they don't and they aren't planning on reading it, well, then we have a little problem there. I think that's called that's called lying, right? That's called, if you're in court and you take an oath and you violate that oath, you can be held criminally accountable for that. And so that's a pretty serious offense. So,
yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I'm of the opinion, Lloyd, I'm sure you are too. We don't need freedom of the press. We need freedom from the press.
We need a constitutionally sound press. They're almost like a fourth branch of government.
absolutely. And as
Yeah.
Ronald Reagan said, it's not that people are lying. They just know so much that isn't so. And so
Exactly.
you're helping
Exactly.
to empower the knowledge.
And we need to hold them accountable under perjury statutes.
100%. So as we close out, as always, last thoughts you have for the audience, and where can people find your work?
7discoveries.com. That's the number 7discoveries.com, and LloydBrunson.com. The 7discoveries.com is what these books are being made available. Even there's Brunson Brothers music in there too, to just kind of liven it up a bit or make it a little more enjoyable and not, not so just serious all the time. And then also I printed up several of these. This is if you were an attorney in a law firm, you cannot get a copy of the summons of someone being sued unless you're a party to the case. So I printed up about 500 of these summonses and complaint for Kamala Harris. It shows her exact summons and complaint. It's perfect bound. It has the congressional record here, the joint session record that was used to get that 10-day pause. And so this is a really unusual little book here, it being Kamala Harris's summons and complaint. There were 387 of these served to the 387 defendants.
Brilliant. Now, is that 7 the number or the letter, or is it, how is
The
that?
number 7, the number 7,
Okay,
discoveries.com.
great. Just for the audience, for cogency's sake. And we'll,
Sure.
of course, leave those links as always in the description. Lloyd Brunson, thank you, sir. We appreciate your service and your time and all of your passion, energy. It's great to have you back on again, and hopefully we'll see you in the not too distant future.
Thank you, John. I look forward to it. Thank you very
Likewise.
much.
Take care.